Hello, everybody. I am here with Colleen,
Hello.
and today we are joined with friend, colleague, all the things, Martha Lacy. Hi, Martha.
Hi.
So we've had actually Martha on the podcast before. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you can just search her name under our podcast or YouTube, and you will go and find her other episode as well. But Martha is an astrologist, a Reiki master, um, all around brilliant woman. She just retired from gosh, you'd have to tell your title, Martha, but she was a physician, all the things, has had very different, where she's at right now is very different than the last time that we had her on the podcast. And so we're just really excited to have you back. We always enjoy your perspectives and the journey work that we do together. So we're excited to be here today with you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we go ahead and just start? Because as I was saying I was saying before that you are have now retired. So why don't you say kind of where you were before and where you were now, and then we'll get into kind of what we're here to talk about today.
Sure. I retired from Mayo Clinic at the end of January, and I had spent 33 years there as a hematologist, oncologist, and enjoyed my work, but felt called to explore new things. And so we moved from Minnesota back to Colorado, where Charlie and I both grew up in Colorado, and we have property here. Built a small house, and we have a yurt and a pottery studio. And I've now opened my business doing Reiki treatments and astrology readings, and I'm selling my pottery at the local farmers market.
It's amazing. And if you're watching, the background behind her is the view from your property, right, Martha, with the full moon?
Yeah, yeah, I took that view off our deck one evening. So,
Amazing. All very jealous of that. Well, we're just, again, so excited to have you again back. And today we're going to be talking. I mean, who knows where our conversation is going to be going. But today, we tend to go into all different types of things when we're talking together. But today we are going to be talking about some of the spiritual research that you have been doing, that Colleen and you have been doing together, which is the energy of joy. So, do you want to talk? Let's just get started with that, a little bit more about that.
sure. I just was very struck by how many times I've heard the word joy in recent months and years. Even before I retired, there was a big push from Mayo leadership to have all the division chairs bring joy into their divisions, and um, it feels like I hear joy on podcasts. I see it in commercials, and even recently, there's been a major political party that has used that word prominently. And I was just struck by how it's really found its way in that word has found its way into the popular parlance. And as I was thinking about it, I realized that I've been very intentional about inviting joy into my life. And I think of joy as a light, very much in alignment with the light of Reiki. And so I've been just doing some pondering and journaling about how to bring joy in as an intentional choice instead of just randomly hoping it shows up in my life. And um, as I look back on my life, I've been a long time. For many years, I was a runner, and then I devolved into a walker. But I go for long walks in nature every day, and ever since I trained in Reiki, part of my walking has involved singing the Reiki symbols to the trees, and and just sort of tuning into the birds and nature. And so I realized, as I was pondering joy, that that was one of the main ways that I would anchor joy into my life. And I also realized that another way that I've invited joy in very intentionally is through my work with pottery. When we get a lump of clay centering on the wheel, it's very centering personally, but you find yourself in this creative flow and you realize, oh, what could be more joyful than just creating stuff and finding yourself like taken out of time. Sometimes I've found myself looking up and realized it was hours and hours later, and so I think I've really been very intentional about inviting joy in. And as I was exploring that, I decided to try to um, explore that as a theme that I could lead others to as well. I have put together a small little group that meets once a month, and we talk about astrology, and then we do a Reiki journey around the astrologic themes. And in that group, we've been doing some. The last time we met, we did a journey that anchored joy into ourselves and into our DNA, and I did that journey again with Colleen. And so I've been really exploring that as a way to, meld this light of joy with my Reiki practice, and hoping that I could offer that as a tool for other people to use in their toolkits.
Fantastic. And we're going to be doing that journey today, or a version of that journey today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I didn't mention that at the beginning, everybody. We're going to be doing a guided journey by Martha at the end of the episode, like she was saying, to anchor in that joy. So I know we have several things to add, and I know you do, Colleen. One of the things that, like you were saying, that anchoring or bringing in that joy is, I had a session where the quote from it was, choosing joy creates an abundance of joy. And the example of it was that it can be as simple as, what it showed this client is, it can be as simple as choosing a joyful or funny movie over, or show over, choosing a true crime show for her specifically. And not to say she still didn't enjoy the true crime, so it wasn't like a better than, but that laughter that the funny show or the funny movie could bring is that small version of joy. Or changing her algorithm, just that small little thing that she could do to choose joy. Then it starts to create, then, oh, I'm watching joyful things, I'm seeing joyful things on my social media, I'm choosing more joyful things, and how the overall small choices can lead to this big life of that abundance of joy. And so I was kind of noting that when you were talking about your walks and chanting and bringing in the trees, of like, oh yeah, there's another place where you can just bring in those small moments of joy.
One of my favorite Rumi quotes is, the soul exists for its own joy.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, can you repeat that?
The soul exists for its own joy.
Mm.
It's a quote by Rumi.
So good. Well, I think it would also be good to just take a minute to talk about what is joy. And so, through your personal experience and your personal research with it, and right now I know it's a big focus within you. Can you talk about what your perception of joy actually is?
Sure. Um, well, joy is really hard to define. I actually looked it up in Merriam-Webster and saw a whole long list of synonyms for joy, and I thought really none of them captured the essence of joy. I think they had bliss and happiness and a whole long string of other words. And I thought, yeah, those things are part of it, but it really didn't capture it for me. For me, joy is um, just a deep affirmation of life. And for me, joy doesn't mean that I am free of all the human emotions. We all experience grief and anger and fear and hardship, and yet we can be in joy at the same time because we have that deep affirmation for life that's sort of running as an underlying theme throughout life. And um, one of the quotes that came to me as I was pondering it on my walk was that joy is really the ability to convert fear into courage, or grief into solace, or anger into perspective. And joy is the ability to just take those small daily moments and find appreciation in small acts of beauty or kindness or camaraderie every day.
Yeah, that is certainly my experience of it as well. And as you and I have talked about over the years, it's definitely been a focus of mine. And like you said, the same for you, that now I can look back in retrospect and see how it has been a theme in my life, unconsciously and then consciously, and even in the consciousness of the awareness of choosing joy, going through the years of what does that really even mean? What does it look like? As we've talked before, our Reiki lifestyle tagline has been living the light of joy since 2003. And the very first time, because somebody helped me develop that tagline, I didn't even know what a tagline was. And at the time, I remember just thinking, what does that mean? And then over the time, and like you, I think it has amplified so much right now, and everywhere I'm just hearing people talking about it and how much we're ready for it. Collectively and individually, we've been through so many years of it being hard, and having that affirmation of life through all of it, and now getting to have the feeling as well as the affirmation of life. Because that's what I always think as well. It's wonderful is when I have both the feeling of joy, the experience of feeling joyful, and also have that internal state of being of joy. And so, but you also, when we were talking the other day, and just for everybody else, Martha and I work together all the time. And when we were working together the other day, and by that we mean we do spiritual research and talk and journeys together and listening around the meaning of the universe. And so this last time that we've been talking has been specifically about joy. And you were also talking about the astrological influences that are bringing and empowering that amplification of the actual energy of joy. So also, if you could talk about the energy of joy as well.
Yeah, I think part of what I've been tuning into this week is just really noticing that with that full moon, or the new moon earlier this week, that we have a trine of energy going on between some goddesses that are, I think, contributing to this ability to bring joy into the collective. Um, the goddesses that really caught my attention this week was that we had Vesta, which is the goddess of devotion. She's the one that kept the flames going in ancient Rome. And she symbolizes perseverance and devotion. And and nurturing. And she was conjunct the new moon and making a trine with Ceres, who's a Mother Earth goddess. And Ceres was the one that um, took care of all of the plants and the agriculture and crops in ancient times. And it was Ceres' daughter Persephone that got taken into the underworld. And Persephone coming back for half the year um, gave rise to the notion of the winter and the summer. And, but Ceres is very much aligned with nurturing energies uh, and caring for the earth. And then they're making a trine with Hygeia. And Hygeia is the ancient goddess of health. She was the daughter of Asclepius, who was the ancient god of healing. And she was the goddess that governed the ability to be proactive in our healthcare. And so for me, seeing the healing goddess and the Mother Earth goddess and the goddess of devotion all making a trine, which means that they're 120 degrees apart, and that's when the energies flow. They're making a trine in earth signs. And so it's really just a loop of energy that can flow easily and augment the feelings that we're having now.
And so then empowering, because what we've also talked about is joy is an actual energy, its own frequency. And here on the earth, we have the duality of it, as we have in, everything here. And so we have the higher frequencies of joy, that affirmation of life, that internal knowing, and we have the feeling of joy. And then we can also have the absence of joy while we're here and in human consciousness. And so what we've talked about is how Reiki energy is, it actually, it's part of the life force energy of Reiki. And really, to me, it's each of the symbols. I don't know if you find, specific ones, but they're empowering that sense of joy within us, healing the places where there's the absence, and then strengthening the actual energy and the life force energy of that within us. And so, can you talk more about like that frequency and energy of it as well?
Yeah, I also see joy as a frequency and an energy, very much like you do. And for me, the powerful word is choice, because once you choose to invite in joy, no matter what emotions are passing through life at the moment, that gives you mastery over your own autonomy, because you can, you know, you the life circumstances and emotions can create havoc for you. But if you choose joy, you know that there's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel and the dawn that follows the dark. And it's just a way of affirming life, but affirming your faith in life as well. And it gives you a sense of control and mastery, and that you know that you're the author of your own fate.
Can either of you kind of talk a little bit more about that, Martha? And examples might not be the right word, but talking about choosing what do you mean when you say choosing joy even when things are really hard? Because I know people who are out there who are going through really challenging times. It's like, okay, well, what does that even mean? And how do I do that? So I can't do that, right? I feel like that's a better word to say. I feel like I can't do things like that right now because things are so heavy or things are so hard or I'm in a really big period of grief, those kinds of emotions that are a part of life. So I would think that being in that state, it would be hard to even kind of grasp the concept of that and like what that means.
Yeah. For instance, we lost a close friend last year. And um, for me, being in a state of or choosing joy wasn't that I didn't feel grief about his loss. I did. And if I think about it now, I could probably still come to tears over it. But choosing joy means that um, I take solace in just remembering all the times he made me laugh. And it's literally, I think it's really aligned with, remembering the little things, all the little things that you did to appreciate someone or something, um, or all the times you noticed the beauty in small everyday acts. And um, I acknowledge that it's really hard when you're in the middle of going through something to take time. But if you choose to allow joy in, um, it just subtly present it as joy anchors into your cells. It just subtly shifts um, how things land with you, what you focus on, and instead of focusing on the loss, you're able to focus on how great it was to have had that person in your life, and those types of examples. I don't know if you have any other examples, Colleen.
Well, I think for me, the time that was the most impactful for me is I was in a really big time of grief and challenge and had that tagline, living the light of joy, and working with Reiki with it and working with shamanism with it and just not understanding it, even though I would think of myself as fairly naturally joyful as a child, childlike wonder and things. But at that time that I'm speaking of, life was really rough. And I would say that it's my father had just died. There was just lots going on. And I was on a vision quest, and it was really hard. And I decided to do it in a very hard way. And it was, like over 100 degrees. My crystal, I was in the middle of the quest meditating, and I hear the voice, open your eyes right now. And I opened my eyes, and my crystal had caught the grass on fire. That's how hot it was. And I was just in agony in this vision questions, 4 days in the heat. And really, speaking of devotion or stubbornness, I don't know what it was, but I did not want to do what's called coming down off the hill, and which meant I would have left early and I would have gone into a more comfortable place, and I still would have been in solitude. And I didn't know it then, but what came through probably immediately was that I could be in those feelings of struggling. I was even suffering. I would call it suffering. And I still had that state of joy within. And that's when I really understood my own duality, was that as a human being, I have duality consciousness. And so that life force that's inside me of the energy of joy still existed even in the suffering. But then it became something, as I became aware of it, in the idea of choice over the years. And this is true with frequencies like gratitude, um, frequencies of the energy of love or appreciation. Those are very much a part of a human experience in being on earth, because when we're in the enlightened realms, there's no absence of those things. So I came to understand by journeying with Reiki into the enlightened realms where there was no duality, that the experience of joy and the absence of joy was a very human experience. Although I do see it with animals too. So I would think maybe it's an earth experience more than just a human experience. And so, like a dog running zoomies, for instance, and we see camels run zoomies, and I don't know. Well, maybe in some of my vision quests, I've seen some slugs that I would say, in their own way, they were doing some zoomies. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But actually, it's a good example, I would say, in another quest that I did where I had a caterpillar that stayed with me for all of my quest. And um, it brought joy and ended up bringing joy in the later part of my life. But back to the enlightened realms where there's no absence of joy, understanding that it's a life force energy and that we can actually receive it simply by asking for it. And I also went through a period of this during when the book and the movie The Secret came out, and everybody was talking about how you had to, be able to stay in this place of thinking properly, or not properly, but thinking, good thoughts in order to create a good life. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, there's just something's not right about that perception of that idea, because what I was discovering is that the state of being inside was one piece, the feeling and the emotion, and maybe even the state of my brain and my thoughts weren't always in alignment with that inner side. And so that I could use Reiki to actually amplify that joy within, the gratitude within. And through the nature of Reiki, it was showing me that I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to deserve it even. I didn't have to work, like make sure every thought that I had was a joyful thought in order to receive that light of joy from Reiki, that it could empower that strength within, even if my feeling was different. Because the reality is, I would think, but I'm in terrible grief right now. No, I don't feel a lot of joy. I'm grieving. And I didn't want to not grieve either. I didn't want to bypass. I guess that was it, is I felt like things were trying to bypass our life experience or the nature of our reality by things like, oh, just bring in joy, or so it's that over the course of this time and in this recent time that you and I have been really engaging in this topic, I feel like I'm understanding the energy of joy so differently than I ever have. Like I finally am going, that's what living in the light of joy means. Like saying yes to it, but I don't have to earn it and I don't have to deserve it. I can just receive it. And with Reiki, because Robin, you were asking, what's the how to, right? Because
I
man,
was
when
I was
you're,
trying to have examples to help understand it, because a part of me wonders, and hearing both of you, a part of me is another question that's kind of in there is like, also, is there a level of retrospectiveness to it? Because
absolutely.
both of we're different ages, right? And Martha, I think you're a little younger than Colleen, but you're more close to each other than, and me, I'm 40. And I'm just wondering about that aspect of life experience around it all, I guess. I don't really know what my question is, but does that kind of make sense? About both of you have kind of talked about like, oh yeah, I can look at this and think or have or feel or receive these this as as my experience, and I'm like, I wonder if I can, because I would say for the most part I live like a pretty content life, I live, I feel content in my life, I feel joy in my life, but a part of me wonders if I can kind of separate the duality quite as easy, and I don't know if that's a personal thing or if that's more of an age thing. I don't know if either of you have percep perspective on that as well.
There, there are some definite benefits to being in that crone stage.
I love that, Martha.
And you're right. Sometimes it's hard to recognize in the moment. It is with the benefit of retrospection that you realize that, oh, I was suffering, but I was also able to affirm life. I was able to, take small consolations in small pleasures in the day. Um, I was able to appreciate small acts of kindness or the awesome beauty of something blooming outside. Um, it's not that me being in the light of joy doesn't mean you're not feeling really, really awful about some major life transition that might be happening, or feeling some hardship or some fear. It's just that it's almost like it's the ability to recognize there's an underlying current of the affirmation of life that you can tap into. And like Colleen said, you don't have to earn it. I would put it in the same category as grace.
Mhm. As you're speaking, Martha, it's kind of occurring to me also about the practice of noticing it, because I do notice that you were experiencing joy in that moment, because as you were saying, like, oh, I do notice beauty. And in this cycle, I've got some hard stuff happening in my life. My father-in-law is at the end of life, and yet I can drive down the road and notice that flower on the side of the road and think, look at how beautiful that is, or look at how beautiful that is, or those acts of kindness, kind of what you were both saying. But I guess I didn't necessarily equate that to, like, I don't think it, like, really anchored in that, oh, I am noticing that still. I am seeing those things and can appreciate those things. And so that's kind of what I mean by noticing that I'm still noticing those things, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, maybe part of what you both are talking about.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories is my sisters and I went home to spend time with our mother when our dad took a trip to Alaska with our brothers. And when I was driving from Colorado back to Minnesota, there were just fields and fields and fields of sunflowers that were in bloom. And I'd never seen that many before. And I just knew intuitively that was the last time I was going to see my mother. And I just remember looking at those fields and fields of sunflowers. And for me, it was a message about how wonderful it was to have had her in my life. And she passed away about 3 months later. And so in retrospect, I don't know how I knew that was the last time I was going to see her, but I guess I did. And I just noticed those sunflowers on the drive home. Normally, eastern Colorado is really flat and really dry and doesn't give you much to appreciate.
It makes me think of dandelions. For me, I love noticing dandelions, and in that moment when I see them, and the ones growing up out of the crack of the sidewalk, and their yellow faces looking up, and they're such a kind of underappreciated being on the planet, if we can say, or plant or flower. And it does that for me. It does. It's like it's And it's interesting that we talk about it in those small noticings, the big noticings. But I think for me, some of the big noticings that are different than feelings would be in retrospect, like you say. So, using the example you used with your mother, and I'm caregiving my in-laws right now who are 96 and 92, and everything that entails. But my husband Robin and I lived with my mother for 7 years, and during it, trust me, I didn't always feel joyful. It could be really challenging. But in retrospect, I can, when you and I did the meditation the other day, the one that you did for me, and that DNA came in and the memories popped through of all the funny moments with her. And I was laughing with my sister-in-law who's caring for my in-laws, the 96 and 92, and I was laughing about some of them with my mom, even that ultimately caused her to die sooner than she would because she was so non-compliant and she was just going to do it her way, no matter what I said, and I'd get so frustrated. And I can look back at it with just what a personality she was, you know, and I can laugh now and attribute that feeling to my experience with my in-laws because I can say the same thing. What a personality they are. and, and some of the times like, ah, you know, and the challenge of it. And then that moment inside of knowing, that time that I have even. So there's some, okay, take some deep breaths. It's okay. I have joy.
Well, and I think that's kind of where the questions are coming from is this you talked about it, Martha, with the understanding of we all have the understanding of what we think of as the definition of joy, right? What we think of is when we're doing something joyful, we're laughing, we're having fun, that is what we think of as joy. And what you'd kind of said, both said actually, is that where you're understanding it from is from even that even higher frequency of it, that higher level of it. And I think that that's the little bit of the part that is a bit hard to wrap around, that like as I said, I'm like, oh, I am noticing it. So noticing, and that's the deeper level of understanding of that frequency that both of you are talking about. And I think that that's where it can be a little challenging to wrap around, and maybe like you said, the benefit of being in the stage of crone, that maybe you can look back on life and understand, oh, that's what that was. But how beneficial it is, as you both are saying, to know it in the moment as well. And if we can learn to do that at maybe earlier stages, that that it can be so helpful, because it's like, even through this episode, even through listening to you two, there is like another level of understanding that's kind of coming in. Oh, that's what you mean. And Colleen's been talking about this for 20 years. So I've heard this a lot of that.
Like, what
But
are you talking about?
yeah, but I think, yeah, it's really interesting, really important too. I didn't have a question. I'm actually, as we're speaking, is like kind of having another level of realization. So I'm sharing and asking these questions because I'm thinking probably other people are in that same place of really trying to understand, like, what do you mean when you, like, I can intellectually grasp what you're saying. And when I'm in maybe a place of like in a journey or something like that, like I can grasp it there. It's just in that everyday idea of what you're saying. And there's probably other people that are listening that are like, no, I know exactly what you two are talking about, so I'm sure we have both that are listening to this with understanding of that. But it's that's why I'm kind of continuing with that process as we're speaking, so that it's like, oh, maybe there that can help understand it and what you're saying with it all, and like really deeply understand that too.
The first step is like for me in choosing it meant I just simply said, okay, I trust enough to say yes to receiving joy and understanding that it's not always the feeling. And like Martha said at the beginning, when people talk about joy, they talk about it as a feeling or an emotion or an exuberance or a celebration. It is all of those things, but it's so much deeper than that. And I would say, to me, I would go as far as to say that it's a foundational stability energy. Like it creates stability within me and trust. Like there's a self-trust that comes with it. And I think there's many of those things like that, just like gratitude is the same thing. I had to learn that Reiki could empower us with gratitude when we're not feeling grateful. And with some of the things currently that have just happened, without going into detail in the world, but it is, there's some serious tragedies going on. And to think of, oh, a person in the middle of those circumstances is going to stop and say, oh, I'm in the state of being of joy inside of me. Maybe not, but there's a stability and a strength to the energy. I think, I don't know about animals because I've certainly seen animals express joy. And I've certainly been out among the trees when, they're talking to each other and you can hear them and it feels joyful. But I think for me, understanding the actual energy of it as a creation source of energy that this creation was built on and that we can receive because it exists in the creation sources of energy, knowing that the earth has an absence of it too. Just like gratitude, just like love, just like beauty, all of those perceptions and realities are frequencies of this creation. And the way I think of it is that these frequencies are like streams of energy, and we can increase those streams in our personal lives. And Martha, I wanted you to talk about this, that how you've really seen it grow in the collective, that we can actually empower it. Like we can use intention to co-create on the earth individually and collectively, that joy is a truth here and what we want to create with and empower through our intention. So I understand that it's still, learning it. But anyway, Martha, if you want to talk about that part of it.
Yeah, no, I think I was really struck with how often I'm seeing that word in, whether it's advertising, corporate, podcasts. You just hear that word over and over and over, and it struck me that not that I empowered this, but I thought we people that have sort of accepted joy. And tried to augment it and empower it in our lives, are co-creating it. And I think as more and more people are awakening it and inviting in these higher frequencies of joy, that we're actually empowering it within the collective, and that we're creating the cultural zeitgeist, and that and that as this cultural, as it takes more and more momentum within the culture, that it will become more and more of the norm. And it won't just be a passing fad, that we're actually helping to co-create the society we want to see evolve. We're in the process of evolving. And I think we're in the process of accepting as a culture that that we want to have joy be part of that culture.
And can you talk about it from the perspective of epigenetics and DNA?
Well, what I've seen in my journeys is that when we can use Reiki to help create the epigenetics that we want to manifest. Genetic, we all have the same set of chromosomes we were born with, so we don't really change our genes, but what genes get expressed and what order they're getting expressed in is a huge area of research now called epigenetics. And what I've seen in my Reiki journeys is that when we invite in Reiki, and also I've seen it now with joy, that when we invite in joy, that we're bringing the light into the body, and it's actually coming into us and getting dispersed at a cellular level, and it helps change which neurotransmitters are getting turned on and which parts of the brain are getting turned on. And I actually, when I was writing the article I'm going to submit about joy, I heard I got to reading about the hedonic centers in the brain, and I thought that was such a great term. But it turns out joy is not just localized in one part of the brain. There's actually multiple different parts of the brain that light up when they study joy in research ways. And I think that's because of the epigenetics. I think, as we breathe in, as we invite in Reiki and invite in joy, that it actually turns on the cellular mechanics that allow us to make, like, dopamine and serotonin and the other neurotransmitters that are associated with joy. It allows us to downregulate our stress hormones. It allows us to maybe tone down the input from the gut-brain axis that makes us anxious. Or I think it actually interacts with us at a very physical, very cellular level, and it turns on and off the right hormones that makes it easier for us to experience joy. And there was a saying that the neurons that wire together, fire together. And what that means is that we're actually changing the neural pathways. As we invite in Reiki and invite in joy, and all of these cellular processes get revved up, we're changing our neural pathways. And so that makes it actually easier, and it becomes easier and easier and easier to access that state of joy consciously.
That is a great explanation. Yeah, it has a physicality to it.
Well, and I like what you said, Colleen, too, that you can just invite it and trust, and it'll show you. Like, it'll show you an understanding, and that's so true with so many different things when it comes to, trusting in the universe or Reiki or however, that looks for you. And then you were saying, Martha, if you just kind of continue to do that, it changes the neural pathways and allows that to be created epigenetically, or yeah, interesting.
And I think we also don't have to understand it.
That's that trust aspect that
Yeah,
I don't have to understand it yet. It's going to show me.
Yeah. And well, as we were talking, I had the idea of, comparing it to, we can all probably relate to the awareness that the energy of anger, for instance, can create an entire stream of thought form that exists. So, or let's say divisiveness, or, the lower frequencies of things, and we talk about them as thought forms that actually exist, and how we can do things to heal those, or to avoid those or whatever, or to take care of ourselves so we're not engaging in those fields of energy or those frequencies or thought forms. Although maybe I'm speaking in ways people don't know what I'm talking about either. But we can understand that there are broadcasts of energies that are creating streams of thought. And Martha, maybe when I'm done with this, talking about that web that you've done so much work with. And so if we realize that the energy of joy, even though we have assigned it only a feeling, to understand that it's actually an energy, it's a frequency, a thought form we can build, we can empower, and there are the higher frequencies of it. And I know for myself, a couple weeks ago at the distance Reiki share, right after, actually, Martha, it was after the work you and I did together, the meditation you did for me, that I was kind of at capacity. And I even said that, and maybe you were even there. And I said, "Whew, I am at capacity with the energy." So like I needed to receive that level, because we did the same journey we're going to do today, to, where she guided me to have it reach my genetics and the DNA. And then the next day I'm just like, my body needs to stretch out and expand for the capacity that was coming in. And so I think some of these energies are always, or not always, but there's a level of capacity too that we can. That's why Reiki helps with it, because I don't have to understand it. I don't have to earn it. I don't have to deserve it. I can simply invite it, knowing it exists, and allow it to come in and do that work to heal the areas where the capacity gets in my way, like the limits get in my way. But then also to gently, I say gently, open that pathway for it to exist. And so then we talk about, some of the work that Martha and I've done over the years, and her work with the web of life. I keep seeing the imagery of it and this joy thread as a part of it. So maybe you can go into that too.
Sure. And the way joy was shown to me was it actually is an energy of transmutation. And that, going back to your example, Colleen, anger. Well, when you get angry and you create all these thought forms and projections, it's all because you're just seeing it from one small little slice of viewpoint. And joy transmutes that into perspective, so that you're able to then see multiple other perspectives as well. So you can still have your opinion about maybe a situation or how you were treated or something, but it allows you to also see that, oh, that person might have been thinking this, that, or the other. And so joy, it transmutes it. Doesn't necessarily get rid of it, but it transmutes it into something that's easier for you to live with and to make peace with. And the way the web that Colleen was talking about is that I've done a lot of journey work with it was with a being who called himself the messenger of the web, and explaining to me and showing me that the web that connects all things, we call it a web, that we're all connected energetically, but that it actually appears to me more like jello, because there is no empty space between us, there's energy between us. And that a thought form that I may start in my little corner of the web gets instantly transferred throughout the entire web, and that this web of consciousness is this web that connects us is actually made of all of our consciousnesses. It's like millions of tiny mirrors of consciousness that reflect things back to us that we're sending out. And so the light of joy, being the energy of transmutation, gives me mastery over what I'm absorbing and what I'm emitting. And it and the more you work with it, the more you can work with it. And like Colleen says, you don't really have to know how or why it works. But it's just a question of just saying yes.
And the answer might be no to this upcoming question. So, caveat. Do you perceive, as maybe a better word, that joy is an umbrella for a lot of different frequencies or emotions? Because Martha, when you were saying about that anger example of how somebody that is treating you, and I would maybe perceive that as and that the joy can help you to see it from their perspective. I would maybe describe that as compassion, that I can have compassion for this person and their situation, which created them to behave this way or treat me this way. But as I'm listening to you, I can understand what you're saying around that. Do you think that joy would encapsulate those things? Or is it kind of is it in its own bucket that they all exist in their even frequency, like compassion's the same as joy is the same as gratitude? Or do you think that joy might be an umbrella to a lot of those frequencies or emotions or feelings? Or like I said, it could be no. So I'm just curious your perspectives on that.
I guess I would see it as sort of a rainbow spectrum, that all of those energies sort of blend one into the other, and they're all connected. So joy might not necessarily be the very same thing as compassion or gratitude, but it's very closely related and aligned with all of those other energies.
Okay, so you'd see them as the same plane of frequencies. Yeah. Yeah, because it's just an interesting concept of you describing it that way, because I've I felt that as compassion, and what you're saying, like with the anger, I felt that as compassion, but I don't know if I've ever felt that as joy. And so I'm just like I'm like kind of that's interesting to me is all. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that means. Like you said, you don't have to know. I don't necessarily have to know, but I'm curious to explore that and like what that means.
Well, and as Martha was talking, I was thinking of the same thing, those gradient shades. And to me, I think of the colors of the rainbow having the gradient shades as one goes into the other. And I think, to me, compassion would be the umbrella,
Interesting.
if I'm getting that close to a definition.
Of course. Yeah. I know this is all so nebulous, like, of course, but that's interesting, Colleen.
And I'm now only hearing myself say those words. So that isn't, it kind of goes back to, well, journey on that, Robin.
I know. Well, and that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, huh.
You want to journey on that. I'll journey on it too. But
Yeah.
here's a perfect example. Martha, you talking about it being an energy of transmutation. It's like that truth. I'm like, the truth is there, but I've never thought that before. And so I think that's part of it. It is such an ongoing learning about what it even means. So yeah, in your experience of it being transmutation.
Well, that's part of what I'm really enjoying about this conversation because it is a little bit nebulous, and for each of us to kind of find, like you said, journey on it. Like I never thought of that, and it's like, well, that's curious, and not in a position of like I don't agree with that. I'm like, well, what the hell does that mean? In like a good way, like, wow, okay, really interesting. And having some experience of this, like kind of in my immediate life right now, and trying to get to the place of compassion, I'm curious of like, oh, well, but what if I explore it from what you're saying, Martha, of joy and transmutation? Does that shift? I get to ask that question and explore that, because I will be fully honest. It's like I don't really have that. I don't have an understanding of that, but I want to. Like I want to, and I think that's such a beautiful perspective. And just that idea of transmutation, because I think so many of us want to be into that transmuted place of those feelings that we have, those that place that intellectually I want to be in the place of that anger being transmuted, right? And sometimes that's easier than others, and sometimes you can receive perspectives that allow you to be into that place. But if this is a something that can help to transmute that, whether or not I understand it in this moment, I can say yes, and I can ask for that to come in and help with that and listen to what it's going to show me, and in the way that you have the understanding of it, already. And so um it's just another avenue to go into that higher level or deeper level of understanding around it. Really, really beautiful.
Yeah, well, even in thinking of over the years, and Martha and I have talked about this too, that now we can look back in retrospect, and it's been a part of our life and life purpose even, wouldn't you say, Martha?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I too have been a naturally optimistic person. It may be because Jupiter rules our sun signs, but
Well, we can't get into the astrology because we're both Pisces in the same year, and we have a lot of similarities that way too. And I don't know that it runs inherently, or and maybe that's where it even on a soul level brought us together to do the work together. And now we're going, oh, we both have focused on joy. Again, unconsciously, consciously, really all our life. And yeah,
Yeah,
is that optimism? Maybe.
that's interesting. And
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Colleen.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting because, like, yeah, I've always kind of described you as that of like, and again, transmuting. You see people, and I don't know too much about your familial history, Martha, but you see people that, Colleen, you've talked about your familial history, especially with your dad, grandpa, and and how you did kind of transmute those aspects of your childhood, and but at the same time that it was a path for you that maybe came more naturally than some people might experience. Because I would consider myself generally living like a happy life. Like I know I said content early, but I would also say happy. Like I feel, even when things are hard, like I feel generally like, not to say I feel happy 100% of the time, but I live like a generally happy life. Um, But I don't know if I would consider, like you were saying, like I'm an Aries, so I don't know if I would say it for myself in the same way that you both say it, as far as like how it's been kind of a theme throughout your life for joy. But maybe I just haven't understood it, because I always equated joy with happy, and I wouldn't say that I live like I'm so joyous all the time, how I think of it. But maybe today is the turning point. My understanding of it.
Well, you certainly have a child that gives you examples of it every day.
That's true. Yeah,
And a dog.
that's true.
Dog is joyful nonstop.
It's very true. Interesting.
And I'm not sure I can explain it based on my lineage, because I'm primarily Irish, and they're not known for being optimistic.
I'm primarily Irish too. I've been
Got,
seeing so much.
got to be that Jupiter.
It is. It's so true. But yeah, even considering, I've been seeing all the things on TikTok about Irish genetics, and it's been so fascinating, because I just thought, well, it's something that Reiki has shown me, that Reiki has really come in, and I would say transmute that kind of genetic belief in suffering that runs in an Irish history, ancestry, maybe, from 800 years of oppression and suppression and famine and all the epigenetics that go with that. But that's a whole other subject we could probably do another time. But that was because it showed up in my Reiki sessions. Like for 2 years, I had clients coming that were, really needed that actual healing of their ancestry. And it ended up very life-changing. So that is really, what another commonality, Martha.
Do you both have Jupiter and Pisces?
No, I have Jupiter and Virgo.
Oh,
Mine's in direct opposition to
oh,
my sun sign.
My Jupiter is in Aquarius,
oh.
but Jupiter rules Pisces, so
Oh, gotcha.
on that it rules our sun signs.
Gotcha.
But I have it in the 11th house, which I would say is, a beneficial house for Jupiter, but it does oppose my sun. Maybe helps out. So I don't go too far off. I'm gonna stay here.
And that would explain your affinity for podcasting.
Is that right?
I have Jupiter in my 11th house too.
Yeah, that the 11th house has to do with having an audience, because it's the house of friends.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting. Mine's in Capricorn, but it's in my 11th house too. Interesting.
Well, tell us about some of your astrology stuff. I know we still want to have time for the meditation, but also because Martha is a really skilled astrologer too. I just had a reading with her. Fantastic. Speaking of like just eye-opening, some of the things that it it has really been affirming of things that I now know that I knew about myself that I didn't know I knew. That makes sense. So if you want to talk about your astrology practice too, because people can actually do astrology readings with you. So talk some about that.
Yeah, well, I got interested in astrology because of the shamanism and Reiki, as I realized we were all connected energetically. Astrology fits into that nicely, because it just gives you a map of those energetic connections. And I enrolled in Kepler College, and I got my certificate in natal readings, and I'm working my way through their medical astrology program and their predictive program. But the more I delve into astrology, the more it helps me understand just how energetically connected we all are. I don't think it actually works because Saturn's up there messing with us. I think it works because we're all part of the same quantum field. And no matter how far away those planets are, they're all internal as well. And that we're all reacting to the same energy fields. And it's just really fascinating and fun to delve into somebody's chart. For me, it's something magical happens when I have the person in front of me and I've got the chart, and the chart just starts speaking. And no matter how many other readings you've gotten, every different astrologer brings something different to it. So you'll get insights that or you'll get validations or insights in ways that you might not have gotten before. And it's just really fun. It's a great way to be of service to people.
And you have Pathfinder gatherings. Tell us about that too.
Yeah, on my website, if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get the links. And we meet about once a month, and we spend 15 or 20 minutes talking about whatever configuration happens to be happening at the time and what that might mean on an energetic level for the world and for us personally. And then in order to give people a real visceral feeling for what that energy means, we then do a Reiki journey. And so we do a lot of Reiki journeys to the different planets, and each month is different. And we've gotten a lot of insights that way as to how these energies land in the chart. And I think it really helps people understand their charts better, or understand the planets better and the energies and how to navigate them.
You know, for all the years I've been involved with astrology, and I've never really been able to kind of translate it the way that you do, or understand it. And I know for me, it's just such a benefit to have some personal understanding of the cycles and the nature of the cycles that we're in. And so Martha's website is marthalacy.com, right? And Lacy is Lacy.
Yes.
marthalacy.com. So anyway, any other services, because you do Reiki sessions and things too, any other services that you want to share?
Right. If you go to my website, you can sign up for either the astrology readings or for Reiki sessions. And I do them locally. I do them in our yurt, but most of my Reiki sessions are distance sessions over Zoom. And they're very much done in a Reiki journey style.
And then another thing you told me, and I know you're not completely there yet, but the way that you're going to do your pottery.
Yes, I'm in the process of talking with my webmaster about modifying my website so I can start selling some of my pottery online, because I sell it at the local farmers market, and I'm looking for little art festivals to start showing it at. But some of my pottery has kind of a narrow audience. I make astrology themed pottery, and I make shaman themed pottery. And so not everyone at the local farmers market wants to buy a zodiac tray for doing their monthly new moon rituals, or or have
Or the peace grids like you made for us.
Yeah, I
Peace
do.
grid pottery.
Reiki grids to do the peace grids, and I recreate those in clay, and then I set all my crystals up on them, and I do the same with my zodiac grids. So I've made a similar kind of tray that has all the signs of the zodiac on it, and every month I recreate. I use crystals to recreate where the planets are in the sky in that grid, and I send my new moon intentions into that grid every month.
Well, I think that's a whole other podcast that we need to do. I don't know if you're able to take your recording equipment into your pottery studio and like actually show us.
That would be fun. And actually, one of the things I have been toying with offering on my site is a session to create your own sacred object. So I've done this a few times with friends just for fun, where I'd set my phone up right at the level of my pottery wheel. So they've got an eye view of the wheel, and we do an invocation and set some intentions, and then they watch me put those intentions into the clay, and we create a vessel. And it lends itself really well to making rattles, because then we can send an intention into each bead of clay that as we put it into the rattle, and then close the vessel. And it's a fun thing to do with someone. And then I finish the pieces and mail them off to them.
Again, when your website is ready and you're ready, we'll plan on it and do another podcast. And if we can do it from your studio, that would be great, and be able to see the different things and maybe even watch you create something.
Oh, that would be fun.
I'm like, again, all those interests that come out, boom, now we could do that. Let's do that next. Well, what do you guys say? Do you want to go ahead and go into the meditation? And Reiki journey is really what it is, but I'll let you explain it, Martha. We
Sure.
want to go into it? Are we complete with the discussion for now?
Yeah, I think as we were saying, like some of the times the best way of understanding and receiving is by experiencing it. And so as you said, Colleen, let's journey on it. And Martha's going to be able to guide us through that. Martha, I don't know if this is a part of what you're going to say, but if anybody wants to automatic write, you can certainly pause the episode, and we're going to take just a moment before we start on it and pause, and we'll come back. It'll be on the same episode. But you can pause the episode, get a pen and a journal or whatever, and do some automatic writing if you'd like to, or at least space for journaling after. Martha, sorry, I don't know if that was in part of what you were going to say, but if you want to go ahead and we'll go into it.
Yeah. So for the journey, what I've done is journey using the bridge of light down right into the cells, and then into the DNA. And then we'll have an experience with anchoring joy into the DNA.
I love
Fantastic.
it. I'm excited because I've had the basics. Now I get the next level. So.
And real caveat, if you're driving, things like that, just be aware that sometimes these journeys
go deep.
Yeah, it can go deep. And so maybe you'll want to come back to this. If it's possible to let it wash over you, that's one thing. But if you definitely, pause and come back when you're in a more safe spot to be able to go into it. So, okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and pause for a minute, and then we'll get started on the journey. Just remember, Martha is at marthalacy.com. You can marthalacy.com, right? Martha is the actual URL. And then you're also on Facebook. Is that under Pathfinder or is that under Martha Lacy?
There's Pathfinder Ceramics and Pathfinder Pottery. Pathfinder Pottery is my Facebook, and Pathfinder Ceramics is my Instagram. Okay. And then I do have an astrology and Reiki social media, but I don't pay as much attention to them as my pottery ones.
And you can sign up for her newsletter too. That's where she sends out a lot of her information.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the journey.
So this is the journey to bring the light of joy into your body and anchor it into your DNA. Go ahead and get comfortable. Close your eyes. Breathe in the light of Reiki. And as the light of Reiki travels in on your breath, just notice that it disperses from the lungs into the blood and throughout the body. Breathe in the light of joy. And breathe in the light and the power of love. And as the power of love travels in on your lungs, and gets dispersed into the blood and travels throughout all the cells, begin to notice different parts of your body. The tips of your toes, your fingertips, the top of your head. Just feel those areas awakening, receiving the light, becoming rejuvenated, revitalized by the light. Breathe in the light of the divine mind. And as this light travels in on your lungs and disperses throughout the body, again, notice how it lands in various tissues. And be aware as the cells begin to awaken, as the cells have their imagination fired up, awakening their sense of exploration and adventure and creativity. And notice as the cells receive the light of the divine mind, they begin to align with your higher self, your original purpose. And our intention to invite in the light of joy. And invite in the light of the divine heart. The Reiki distance symbol. The light that takes you out of time and out of space into the area of just pure sacred space. And as this light travels in on your lungs and takes root in your heart, feel the light of the divine mind, the divine heart filling your heart space, extending beyond your heart space to involve your whole torso and beyond your torso till you're in a bubble, just pure sacred light empowered by Reiki. And as we find ourselves filled with Reiki, allow the bridge of light to form in front of you. And find yourself walking to the bridge of light. And we ask it to take us deep inside ourselves. And as you get on the bridge and feel that red wash of light flow through you, lighting up your first chakra, allowing you to feel safe, nurtured, cared for. Allow the orange light to wash through you, awakening your creative juices, resonating with your second chakra. And as you go forward into the yellow light, you can feel your sense of autonomy, your right to be here, being empowered. This yellow light awakens your gut brain axis, allows you to trust your intuition and those gut feelings. Walk through the green light. And just feel the wash of love. The love you emit, the love you receive. The love from the Mother Earth. And allow that love to wash through you. As you go forward and walk through the beautiful aqua blue light, you can feel your throat chakra opening. Allowing you to speak your truth. And be aware that your words have power. And that as you speak your truth, you're creating your words, creating your world with your words. And go a little further into the beautiful indigo light, where the filters come off and you can receive depths of wisdom and knowledge. And you can step forward into the violet light and know that you're connected always with your higher self, your guides, your ancestors. And as you step off the bridge, you find yourself deep down inside your own body, in your heart space. And as you feel yourself in the heart space, just notice the beat of your heart and how your heartbeat aligns with the heartbeat of the earth. Allow yourself to feel the resonance with the earth. And feel the love of the Mother Earth holding you, nurturing you, carrying you on her back. If there's any messages that you want to receive from the earth, or any messages you want to give her, go ahead and give and receive those now. The love and the blessings of the Mother Earth, and feeling the resonance with her heartbeat. Go ahead and notice the walls around you beating rhythmically, perfectly in tune with one another. And allow your consciousness to just drift into one of those heart cells. And as you find yourself within a cell, it's like arriving in a whole new world unto itself. You can still hear the heartbeat, feel the resonance. But you can see the mitochondria off in the distance. Powerhouse of the cell, creating the fuel that keeps you going. You may find yourself floating in the cytoplasm. If you turn around, you'll see the nucleus of the cell. And allow your consciousness to drift over to that nucleus, because that's where your DNA is. And as you get into the nucleus, the DNA begins unwinding, presenting itself to you. It may look like a spiral staircase or a twisty ladder. And go ahead and grab one of those rungs of the ladder and get right on that DNA. And find yourself walking up and down the DNA. And as you do so, begin to notice that the DNA is responding, it's resonating with you. Each rung lights up as you step on it. Imagine this DNA as a giant piano keyboard. Each rung you step on lights up and begins a song. And you can sing the song of your DNA. And now invite in the light of joy. Now ask the light of joy to empower your song. And as the light comes in, you can begin to dance up and down your DNA, each key lighting up. And as the light of joy empowers you, your song may change. Maybe the tempo speeds up, gets lively. Begin to want to dance up and down this DNA. As the light of joy becomes anchored in between each little rung, and it changes how the DNA is lighting up. You can play with the tempo. You can slow it down, or speed it up. Or you can begin to use the DNA as a pole. Just hang on to it and slide around it like a pole dancer. As you can feel the light of joy lighting up your DNA and playing with the tempo and resonating, you can feel your own unique heart song. You can send your own unique heart song out and beyond your body to join with the heart songs of your loved ones, your family members, friends, neighbors. Now in your mind's eye, allow those heart songs to all join together. Begin to travel across the globe. And as your heart song sings and resonates, it picks up on the heart songs of others who also resonate with you. You can vary the tempo. As you vary the tempo, you see the colors change. Until the song of your DNA is spread throughout the world. You come back, bring your awareness back to your own DNA, and just look up and down the ladder. See how it's changed by the presence of this light of joy, how you've spread it throughout the world. And as you're looking up and down your DNA, you may see your child self. Allow some of those fun memories, the years of wonder, joy, begin to float back into your awareness. Notice what colors or color spectrums are lighting up when joy anchors itself into your DNA. Allow yourself to smile or laugh, or just appreciate the small little beauties you see every day in your life. Enjoy the random acts of kindness or the small inside jokes. Or that comfortable feeling when you settle in with your first cup of coffee. And as these memories come washing over you, just notice how they change the color and the tempo of your DNA song. And you can ask the light of joy to expand your capacity for holding it, carrying it. Ask the light of joy to expand the neural pathways that allow you to easily access it, recall it. And just notice all the different tracks being laid down in your brain, all the signals and hormones that are getting sent out to every cell in the body as joy expands your capacity to hold it. And as you feel the light of joy coursing through every cell in your body, allow it. Allow that light of joy to just turn into an image for you. Maybe it's a sunflower or a beloved pet. And allow joy to just compress itself into that flower or pet or whatever image you chose. And stick that image right into your heart space. This is your way of knowing that you carry it with you and you can access it whenever you like. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and turn around and find yourself back on the bridge of light. And this time the bridge turns into a rainbow water slide. And you can just travel down all the colors. The joy of being a kid at the water park until you find yourself back in the here, back in the now.
Fantastic. Thank you. We're having to come back quicker than we probably would have because we're on recording and podcasting.
Well, the listeners can pause the recording wherever they like.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, thank you. I had an unexpected one. I'm when you said about, what the stairs or the ladder said, I just, you go into these so often and you have one expectation, like Colleen, I think when you said the dog, I was like, oh, well, Joy is like a golden retriever. And, so you just have these expectations of what it might be or, what you think of it. And then it can just be so different than that. And what it showed for me was when you said to have it turn into a color, it turned into glitter. It turned into like rainbow glitter, but how I saw rainbow glitter as a child. And so colors, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I just feel like you experience color so much more vividly as a child than you do as an adult, like just the magic within color as a child. And so took me into that. And I was also kind of expecting there to be like laughter and, that level of joy, but it really took me into that childlike joy and then would take me into the craft projects that we would do at school that we would bring home to our parents and how uh it went through different ones that I can remember, but the ones that I really loved were the ones that involved glitter. So it just went into this whole aspect. And then also when you were talking about it, how it can like filter into the world, then it like took me into Luna's joy of like when she creates these craft projects of like, oh, that's right. That's how that feels when you bring them home to your parents, like these gifts that you bring home to your parents. That's how that feels and the joy that you feel in that. And so it took me into this whole, and then all the colors that would come out were like this rainbow glitter, these rainbow glitters, but again, like the vibrancy, and how you experience them as a child. And so that was really fun because a part of me also has a little bit of a hard time with glitter as an adult because of the like environmental implications of glitter. So it was like this whole kind of healing and yeah, so anyways, thank you so much. That was very, very unexpected as to where that would go and also makes so much sense. And I can't wait to just kind of see how this unfolds and how, what insights continue to come in after it.
That's great.
And for me, it was a continuation of the last time we did this, and it just started highlighting so many memories of joyful memories. And really, a lot of them that, I remember, but I kind of forget from childhood by now and lose track of. And some of the really fun things, like even as I'm talking, they're just popping all in my head of all these different memories of having one pop in right now that I saw a TikTok the other day of somebody saying, what is up with people who do these things? And it was some guy going into a little tiny hole in the ground under a tree, like physically doing this. And you're thinking, What would make you do that? And remembering, I always stuff like that. Looking back at going to the Hobbit hole in Torrey Pines cliffs that now, they're like, never climb on those cliffs. So, oh, too fun. So really memories like that really popping in that are fun that, you lose track of them over time. So I would say for me, it's an expansion of that. They're firing really quickly, like coming in quickly.
That's great.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of magical types of feelings.
Yeah, that was what was surprising. It was like there was a level of awe for me, that I would have expected it to be different than that. I would have expected the zoomies or the laughter or but yeah, that awe that you find in color in childhood. And and so that's a good word for it too. It's awe. Hmm,
That's a
really
great
interesting.
word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, you want to share about yours, Martha?
Oh, I was seeing memories of my neighbors in that we grew up across the street from, and going down to the parkways and playing hide and seek and kickball and
Yeah, that's the same here, those same kind of memories of the fun. Thinking of like how the joy of surviving myself. I was a daredevil kid, that's for sure. I don't know where Luna gets it from.
Well, what's interesting too is all kind of childlike things.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because in one of the memories popping through, I was like maybe 3 or 4. And we had those old steel wagons and
Mhm.
Red Rider wagons, and get up on the highest hill on the street and ride it down, and no brakes, and you just eat it at the bottom. Get up and do it again. Laughing.
Yeah, our parents didn't have a lot of sense, because I remember leaving the house in the morning and coming home, at dusk.
Exactly. Like, come back later. Be home by dinner.
And I kept splashing on Converse tennis shoes, because those were like the big thing when I was in grade school. Everybody had to have their Converse tennis shoes.
Really? I don't remember that. We had the white go-go boots. 4th grade. It's like, oh, when I got those, because I think I graduated out of the oh, what were they called? Saddle shoes.
I remember saddle shoes.
That was too funny. Oh my gosh. I could probably go into memories for a long time.
Yep.
I love it. Well, that was super fun, Martha. Thank you so much for this whole episode and leading us on that. And yeah, that was awesome.
Well,
So
thank you for allowing me to do it.
I'm so glad you did too, because when we were talking the other day about the actual universal assistance that we're receiving right now, and so if we can just consciously co-create with it, whether we understand it or not, inviting it in, empowering it through our thoughts. And I think that was one of the big takeaways for me, is that I don't have to understand it. I don't even have to feel it, but I can still invite it. And the energy of Reiki will truly help it anchor in and stabilize. And I love that you did the DNA like that, because that continues to assist with that stabilizing energy. Because to me, even the transmutation part of it, there's a stabilizing trust that it can come in and help with that transmutation. And I love that part because I'm going to really like listen around that, how the energy does affect the transmutation. Yeah. Anyway.
That's great.
All right.
Well, thank
Well,
you so much, everybody. And marthalacy.com and reikilifestyle.com is where you can find each of us.
I think I'd like to do just one last quick. There is still some room in the class that William Rand and I are teaching in Japan in the end of September, beginning of November, end of October, beginning of November. Just adding that.
All right.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.